This is horrible. I'm not even like set up yet, and like, oh, here we go. Now that my hands are sufficiently greasy from that chicken, which was actually really, really good, and I'm not upset about. I'm gonna get right into this video, even though I should be studying, doing schoolwork, resting because I have a dinner to get to tonight, editing photos because I have hundreds of photos that still need to be edited. Well, instead of all that, instead of making a video, I'm just gonna go ahead and make this video. These guys are from a brewery called Oozlefinch. Oozlefinch. You would have to go there or message them for them to explain to you what Oozlefinch actually means. But let me tell you, their name is not the only thing that's crazy. The names of the beer are not just the only things crazy. This one is Netfinch and Chill. We got real beer. Don't be weird. Wait till you all see the photos for that one. It's gonna be very funny. And what's this guy over here? Crazy Pants. So not only is the brewery a wild name, not only are their beers a wild name, but the beers themselves are just as wild. Take, for example, Netfinch and Chill. It is a imperial saison ale with white mulberry, black mulberry, wildflower honey, vanilla, and lactose. And I can't accurately describe to you what the beer tastes like because it's just such an explosion of flavor. Me describing what this beer tastes like to you guys would be like you trying to appreciate a Picasso if you were colorblind. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. It's sweet. It was fun to drink. Like, how many times could you say that a beer was fun to drink? And it wasn't that thick. Like, Oozlefinch is known for milkshakes and those really thick, sour, fruited beers. But this one surprisingly was very light, but still jam-packed full of flavor. So anyways, I drank it when I did the photo without even thinking about, oh God, I gotta make a video with it. But let me tell you, it was delicious. It was out of this world. So keep watching to see how I got the photo to go from this to this. But before I begin, really quick, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, and then go ahead and check out my Instagram, which is Late Stay Photography. The link will be in the bottom there, and go ahead and just go crazy there. Just like everything. I'll have the link to these guys down below as well. All right, so here we go. The photo edit of Netfinch and Chill. All right, so as you can see, I already imported this from Lightroom. I already cropped it over there, added a little bit of the color profile selection. I already started my edit here by opening up the camera raw. Made it a smart filter, so that way if I need to go back and change something, I can, as long as I don't put another layer on top of it. So let me double click here and we'll get right into this. All right, so as you can see, it's very yellow to begin with. And that was because my white balance was a little off. Might have been a little tipsy at this point. And the popcorn gel, the can has a lot of yellow in it. We're going to fix that though. And you'll see exactly how we can make it change. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up the basic layer here. And I'm going to go down to -50 on the temperature. And you'll see an instant change. Like, here's 0, here's -50. You can already see the can separating itself from the popcorn. All right, next we're going to move down here to temperature, or to tint. And let's try -18. A little too much. Let's back it up just a little bit. Kind of like -14. That looks like a good spot right there. All right, the exposure is good. Let's add just like a little bit of contrast here. 20, 30 is a little too much for my taste. 27. I like 27. That's a good spot right there. Now let's move down to the highlights. We're going to take these out and see what happens. All right, taking them all out is a little too much. But if we move them back just a little bit here, actually a lot of it in this situation, right about, I like -28. All right, so for the shadows, so look what happens if we take the shadows out, meaning we make them darker and more prevalent. It gets a little too contrasty for my taste, but once again, that's just my style. So I'm actually going to lift the shadows here. We're going to bring them up here a little bit. Maybe, I like that, 24 again. All right, now the bottom two here, we got the whites and the blacks. Remember that when it comes to those areas, You're not dealing with the middle, which is your exposure. You're not dealing with this area or this area. You're going with the extremes of these. Like, that's the end of the spectrum for this photography or for this photograph. So we're gonna take both of them down just a little bit. Probably won't even be able to notice much, but you will if you're opening this up and doing it on your own. Okay, so we're gonna put them right about there. All right, now let's mess with the texture and clarity here a little bit. Texture is going to bring out exactly what it is, the texture, every little bit of detail in that can. Just look at the stars, like right here. You see where I got the magnifying glass? Look at that star. Let me take this texture down. You see how it's already blurred a little bit? Let's bring it back up now. Yeah, that's nice. Like you can see a lot more defined and crisp edges there. Maybe just even a little bit more. Let's just bring it up just a little bit more. Okay, like that. All right, now for the clarity, we're going to bring that up just a little bit too, because once again, you're going to see how it separates the can from the popcorn. So let's bring this up to about somewhere in the 20s. I don't know why. 20s are working well for me on this photo. Okay, maybe not. I lied. Let's take it back a little bit. Okay, I'm fine with that. Now, vibrance and saturation. The vibrance is going to make this look crazy for a second, but then we're going to desat it, and you're gonna see the difference when we're done with that. All right, let's bring this up a little bit. It's like, oh, Mike, what are you doing? Everything you just took out, you're putting right back in there. So let me tell you then. The reason why I'm doing that is because you have to have something. It's all about balance. Like you got to give a little bit to take a little. So we're gonna give a little bit of the vibrant, but we're gonna take it right back to that saturation, and you'll see the difference in the final image. All right, so now we're going to pull the saturation back just a little bit. Maybe like, let's see where we're going to stop. Okay, 15. I like that. Negative 15 is good. Now, here's what it looks like before and after. You can already see how that yellow and that kind of orangey tint throughout the whole thing is like already being taken out. It's like, right here, it looks like I just had all that popcorn grease on my fingers and just smeared it down the lens. And then you're like, oh, look, I cleaned it up. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and close this and wait for it to load, get it all up. Bam, there we go. And this is why I make it a smart filter, because I totally forgot that I wanted to adjust the curves layer just a little bit here too. So let's come down here to curves. All right, so we're going to look at this area, which once again is a little bit higher up in your shadow area. We're just going to drag this down just a little bit. Okay, now we got to give a little bit here. So we're going to come here and push it up just to give it like a little bit of that S. So if you have an S here, that's going to be more contrast, and a lot of photographers and a lot of photography have some type of an S curve here. All right, now it's all done. So I'm going to close it once again, let it update. All right, so now the very next step we're going to do is going to be the first step in trying to correct the color here and kind of stylizing it too. We're going to click here for a new adjustment layer and then selective color. If you're not familiar with what selective color does, it has your range of every one of the colors that you're going to use, including your whites, neutrals, and blacks. We're going to stick with yellows here, and you're going to see that you can adjust the certain hues within here. So we're going to focus mostly on this popcorn. Like, don't worry about the can, don't worry about the bowl or the background. Just focus on the popcorn here, and you'll see why. So we're going to take some blue out, and you're going to see it turn this weird yellow color or reddish color here for a second. That's a little too much, maybe right about there. Now, if you look at the magenta is finicky because purple's in like almost every color, at least on Photoshop. So watch, you're going to slide this down, and you're seeing it, you're like, oh, okay, so let's take it out because this looks more like normal popcorn than this does. This looks like some hot Cheetos popcorn that's not going to taste good. So let's just slide this down here. Okay, I kind of like how that yellow is beginning to look. So let's add a little bit more and see what happens. All right, I feel like that's a little too much, maybe right about there, 15. And it kind of looks like that nice movie theater popcorn. Still a little too light for me, so I'm going to slide this down. This is going to just turn the yellow pixels a little bit darker. It's almost like being luminous here. Okay, maybe right about there. Okay, maybe right about there. That seems a little bit better. But now it's like, oh, I lost all that texture and color on the can. So what we're gonna do is hit B on your keyboard for brush tool, and we're gonna switch over here by hitting X. So the primary color, the foreground color is now black, and the background color is white, which means you're gonna be hiding the stuff that you just did. Because remember from my last video, here on your mask means that you're revealing stuff. So if you use your black as your foreground color, you're gonna apply, basically you're gonna hide it. So let's add that here to the can. Yep, and there you go. You can already see, I'm just gonna make my brushes a little bit smaller. You can already see on the label that's kind of coming back to like what we just had. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And here's what it looks like before and after. So all that we're doing is affecting everything but the can. And if you hit the backslash above the enter button, you can see exactly where we highlighted it. Let me just get a little bit more up here too. All right, there we go. So now we have that as well, and kind of happy with that. So the next adjustment layer we're going to come here and make is a hue and saturation adjustment, and that would be this one right here. See, it opens up, and you have a bunch of different options that go on up in here. So if you came here, you could actually select certain colors to only affect that area on the spectrum. We're going to stick with the master because we're not going to go too crazy with it. This area we're going to focus on now is the bowl. So the bowl does not look silver. The bowl is reflecting all the color from everything in this image. So how do we fix that? Let's just desaturate it a little bit and see how that looks already. Just clicking there randomly at -53, you see how it just, everything is just like a much more muted color. But if you start looking at the bowl, it's almost like a nice silver. So let's just lower that down just a little bit more. Okay. And you can see the bowl now is just silver, just like how a mixing bowl that you put popcorn in should be. So now we're going to only affect the bowl area. The easiest way to do this is by hitting the Windows I key, or if you're on a Mac, it will be the Options I key to invert the layer. And now the layer is black, so it's hiding everything. So hit X. That's going to change your foreground color to white. So now we can start revealing where we want this to be painted. Once again, we're still in the brush tool. Let's bring up the flow just a little bit, maybe to about 60, so that way we're not making multiple passes. And start just applying it to the bowl here. You can already see that weird kind of like yellow orangey color just coming off. All right, so let me just do this. I'm just going to fast forward through this little coloring area, so that way you guys don't have to sit through all this. All right. Also, I just realized we're not just dealing with the bowl here with this weird like yellow color. The can should be silver as well. We can apply that same technique to the can here. Presto. Now you see how we have a little bit of spill over here. So what I like to do is pull up the mask effect layer here, and that would be the button that's right above your enter key, the backslash. You see how I got it a little bit here and a little bit on the label. So now let's see, what do we have keyed up here? Ah, perfect. You just start painting it on. As long as you have black as your foreground color, you can start just reapplying it to where you want it to be affected, or where you don't want it to be affected, sorry. So right here, it's coming through the can, and it's nice, I like that. All right, so right here, we're gonna add another hue and saturation layer, and that's because this background is actually a gray ottoman that I used to put the bowl of popcorn on and everything. But we can almost make it look like wood here with just a very simple technique. So another adjustment layer, hue, saturation, but this time we're going to hit the colorize button. And it's going to make everything look a little weird here at first, so just bear with me. Let's get this hue into like the orangey, kind of bronzy area. Maybe a little bit more, like right about there. All right, now we're going to pump up the saturation a little bit until you get an almost like wood-like color. Okay, now last, it's still really bright back here. Don't worry about all this. We're just gonna be focusing on the corners here, really. All right, so let's make this just a little bit darker. Actually, a lot of it darker. All right, now once again, we're going to invert it, which is Windows I or Option I if you're on the Mac, and we hit everything. So now how do we reveal it? Hit B for your brush, make sure white is your foreground color. We're just going to start painting it back up here. And once again, if you get a little overflow, hit X to hide. It's kind of like an eraser up in here. All right, now I'm gonna come back here, get this. I'm trying to avoid that line because that looks like just grain, like a grain in the wood. Same thing up here. So I'm gonna try to just paint everywhere else. I'm actually gonna make it just a little bit smaller around the bowl. Now down here, we just color it because it's not really there too much. And that last corner, I'm not even gonna mess with. It's pretty dark already. It's not even gonna make a difference. So why work harder, right? All right, I'm going to lower the flow here just a little bit so I can just take a little bit of that out. Perfect. All right, so all that I'm doing here is opening up another camera raw because I want to get back in there and just tweak a little bit here and there. And the easiest way to do that is just using these camera raw layers. Once again, if you keep them as smart filters, it makes it a lot easier in the future to kind of go back and mess with things a little bit. So let's open this up. First thing we're going to work on is the basic area. It's kind of my go-to as the first because it's on the top for a reason, you know? All right, let's bring up the contrast here and see if that helps separate everything here a little bit more. Yep. So if you look at the popcorn, it's kind of just making the popcorn look a little bit more popcorn, and the can kind of just stand out from that because they have this nice like dark line right here that's creating this nice barrier for the contrast to pick up on. All right, let's drop the highlights just a little bit more. I'm gonna raise the shadows again. Too much. Right about that. Just a little bit. And now we're gonna drop the whites and the blacks again to about, yeah, right about that. Add just a little bit more texture now that we have kind of like reorganized coloring and stuff like that. Add just a little bit more clarity as well. Close that, come down to the curves. Now, once again, like we did in the last video, we were able to kind of like give it that nice haziness. Raise up this back end just a little bit to right about that. And since we already kind of messed with the blacks, we don't have to do it again. We could maybe bring it down just a little bit more, or just kind of leave it where it's at. Because you see, it's just lifting these shadows just a little bit, just enough that you can kind of pick up a little bit more detail in it. Now, the next area we're going to work on is the color grade. And this is kind of like, you're going to see a big change here because remember, yellow and blue are opposites. So if you feel like you got a little bit too much yellow in your image, let's just bring this over to blue, bring this down just a little bit, and you can see some of that yellow just being cut out by adding more blue. Let's add a little bit of yellow to these shadows. Let's add a little bit of blue actually to these highlights as well, because it's still just a little too yellowy throughout here for me. Once again, this if you like it, you can keep it, but it's just a little too yellowy for me. Perfect. All right, let's close this. And there you have it, guys. That's how I edited that really yellow popcorn photo to something that I'm going to post. Well, I kind of did already at this point, right? Yeah, I've already posted it by the time you're watching this video. Just for continuity purposes, I know I changed around these cans, but every time I kept looking at the camera, it was just weird having these cans like right next to my face. Anyway, guys, Oozlefinch. Go check them out. Link will be in bio. The link for my Instagram will be down there. Please, once again, click that subscribe button, click that like, leave a comment, and I'll be back with more beer edits in the future. Peace. Grocery store chicken is just always out of this world. Like, this is straight fire right here for getting it from a grocery store down the street.